Chapter 1, A Dark Alley and a Desperate Man. It was a cold evening in downtown Los Angeles, the kind of night where the city's underbelly thrived. The streets were wet from an earlier drizzle, reflecting the dim glow of neon signs flickering above. Among the hurried pedestrians, an elderly woman named Margaret shuffled along, her worn-out purse clutched tightly under her arm. She had spent the evening visiting her late husband's grave and was now making her way home, tired but content from reminiscing about their cherished moments together. Unbeknownst to her, a shadow lurked nearby. A man named Ricky, desperate and reckless, had been eyeing her for the past block. He wasn't a hardened criminal, but life had dealt him a bad hand. Debts, addiction, and desperation had pushed him over the edge. Tonight, he decided, was the night he would cross the line. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from withdrawal, and his mind was clouded with the weight of his circumstances. He moved swiftly, stepping in front of Margaret with a sneer. "Hand over the bag, lady," he growled, his voice trembling slightly. Margaret gasped, clutching her purse tighter. Fear flickered in her eyes, but before she could react, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. Chapter 2, A movie star in the shadows. Just a few feet away, Jason Statham was waiting outside a nearby coffee shop. Dressed in a simple black jacket and jeans, he was blending in, enjoying a quiet evening after wrapping up an exhausting film shoot. He had come out for a breath of fresh air, escaping the noise inside, when he noticed the commotion. His keen instincts told him something wasn't right. He had spent years training for on-screen fights, performing stunts that most Hollywood actors wouldn't dare attempt. But this was real life, and it wasn't the first time he had stepped in to help someone in trouble. The muscles in his jaw tightened as he observed the situation unfolding before him. Jason's eyes narrowed. He recognized the look of desperation in Ricky's eyes. This wasn't just about money, this was a man at his breaking point. Ricky was jittery, shifting his weight from one foot to the other as if contemplating his next move. Without hesitation, Jason stepped forward, his footsteps light but deliberate, his presence suddenly filling the alley with an unspoken authority. Chapter 3, The Standoff. "Oi, mate," Jason said calmly, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "I think you've got the wrong person." Ricky flinched, his grip on Margaret's purse tightening. He turned his head slightly and instantly recognized the bald man with the intense gaze. A mix of fear and disbelief flashed across his face. His mind raced, trying to process the surreal moment. "Why, Ricky stammered. "Yeah," Jason said, stepping closer. "And I suggest you let go before this gets ugly." Margaret, still frozen in shock, suddenly felt hope. The man standing before her wasn't just an actor, he was known for his no-nonsense, take-no-prisoners attitude both on and off screen. And now, he was standing between her and potential danger. Ricky looked around, realizing more people were starting to notice. The last thing he wanted was an altercation with Jason Statham. He weighed his options, his heart pounding. Chapter 4, A Second Chance. Ricky hesitated. His life had been nothing but bad decisions, and he was seconds away from making another one. But something in Jason's eyes made him pause. It wasn't just a threat, it was an offer. "You don't have to do this," Jason said, his voice softer now. "Whatever's got you down, this isn't the way to fix it." Ricky clenched his jaw. He had expected resistance, maybe even a fight, but not this understanding. His hands trembled as he slowly let go of the purse. Margaret stumbled back, clutching her belongings. Jason caught her before she could fall, steadying her gently. Ricky took a step back. "I'm sorry." Jason nodded. "Go home. Fix your life." Without another word, Ricky turned and disappeared into the night, the weight of his choices pressing on his shoulders. Chapter 5, The Aftermath. The gathered crowd murmured in disbelief. Jason turned to Margaret, checking if she was all right. "Are you hurt?" he asked, concern evident in his expression. She shook her head, still trying to process what had happened. "I think I'll be fine, thanks to you." Jason smiled. "Let's get you somewhere safe." As he walked her to a cab, a bystander captured the moment on their phone. By morning, the internet was ablaze with the story, "Jason Statham stops mugging, teaches thief a lesson in honor." Margaret would never forget that night, not just because she had been saved, but because she had witnessed something rare. In a world quick to judge, a man known for his fists had instead extended compassion. And Ricky? That night changed him. Maybe, just maybe, it was the wake-up call he needed. Chapter 6, Ricky's Redemption. Ricky didn't go home that night. Instead, he walked for hours, replaying the encounter in his mind. The shame burned in his chest, but so did something new, hope. The next morning, he walked into a community shelter. He signed up for counseling, determined to climb out of the hole he had been sinking into. Meanwhile, Jason had moved on with his life, never expecting to hear from Ricky again. But fate had a funny way of circling back. Months later, Jason received a letter in the mail. "Mr. Statham, I don't know if you remember me, but you changed my life that night. I'm clean now. I have a job. I have hope. Thank you for stopping me before I made the biggest mistake of my life." Jason read the letter twice, a small smirk playing on his lips. He folded it neatly and placed it in his jacket pocket. Some fights weren't won with fists. Some were won with a second chance. Chapter 7, An unexpected reunion. Months passed, and Ricky stayed true to his word. He remained committed to his recovery, working tirelessly to turn his life around. With the help of the shelter's outreach program, he landed a steady job at a local gym, cleaning equipment and assisting trainers. Every day, he pushed himself to be better than the man he used to be. One afternoon, as he mopped the floor near the boxing ring, he heard a familiar voice. The deep, unmistakable British accent sent a shiver down his spine. "This place got any decent sparring partners, or am I wasting my time?" Jason Statham joked as he stepped into the gym. Ricky froze. He hadn't seen Jason since that fateful night. He watched as Jason spoke with the gym's owner, completely unaware of his presence. A war raged within Ricky. Should he approach Jason or keep his head down? Summoning his courage, Ricky took a deep breath and walked forward. "Mr. Statham," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Jason turned, his sharp eyes studying Ricky for a moment before recognition dawned. "Ricky," he said, genuinely surprised. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Yeah, been working here for a while now," Ricky admitted. "Trying to get my life together. And I just wanted to say thank you. Again." Jason smiled, giving Ricky an approving nod. "Glad to hear it, mate. But tell me, what have you really been doing to turn things around?" Ricky hesitated, then pointed to the boxing ring. "Training. Learning discipline. Trying to be someone people can trust." Jason's expression shifted to one of deep respect. "Then how about you show me what you've got?" Chapter 8, More Than a Fight. The gym quieted as Jason and Ricky stepped into the ring. The trainers and clients gathered around, intrigued by the unexpected match. Jason, a seasoned fighter both on-screen and off, moved with effortless confidence. Ricky, still a novice but filled with determination, bounced on his feet, ready to prove himself. "Remember, it's not just about throwing punches," Jason said, circling Ricky. "It's about control. Precision. Mindset." Ricky nodded, taking the advice to heart. The bell rang, and they began. At first, Ricky struggled to land a hit, Jason dodging effortlessly. But as the rounds continued, something shifted. Ricky was no longer just swinging, he was thinking, adapting. He blocked Jason's jabs, countered with measured strikes, and found his rhythm. Jason grinned. "Now you're learning." The match ended with Jason patting Ricky on the shoulder. "You've got potential. Keep at it." Ricky, breathless but grinning, nodded. "Will do." Chapter 9, The Offer That Changed Everything. After the match, Jason sat with Ricky by the locker room. "You know," Jason started, "I've been looking for someone with heart, someone willing to put in the work. You remind me of me when I was younger." Ricky's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" Jason leaned forward. "I want to help you. Train you properly. But only if you're serious about leaving your past behind for good." Ricky's heart pounded. A chance to train with Jason Statham? It was more than he had ever dreamed. "I won't let you down." Jason smirked. "I know you won't." And so, Ricky's journey continued, not just to redemption, but to greatness. Chapter 10, A New Beginning. The following weeks were grueling. Jason Statham trained Ricky like a professional fighter, pushing him to his limits. The workouts were relentless: sparring, weight training, endurance drills, and hours of strategy discussions. Every day, Ricky woke up sore, but he refused to quit. Jason wasn't just teaching him how to fight. He was teaching him how to control his emotions, how to think ahead, and how to stay disciplined. It was a complete transformation, both physically and mentally. One evening, after an intense session, Jason sat next to Ricky in the empty gym. "You've got the drive," he said, handing Ricky a bottle of water. "But what do you really want to do with this?" Ricky exhaled, staring at the boxing ring. "I want to help people. I don't want to be the guy who takes, I want to be the guy who gives back. Like you did for me." Jason smirked. "Good answer." Chapter 11, The First Real Test. Ricky's opportunity to prove himself came sooner than expected. One evening, he and Jason were leaving the gym when they heard shouting from a nearby alleyway. Two thugs were cornering a young teenager, demanding his phone and money. Jason barely had to say a word. "You up for this?" he asked. Ricky, without hesitation, stepped forward. "Absolutely." The thugs turned to see Ricky approaching, his fists clenched but his demeanor calm. "Walk away," Ricky warned. They laughed. "Or what?" Ricky didn't wait for an answer. With the precision Jason had drilled into him, he dodged the first thug's sloppy punch and countered with a powerful jab to the ribs. The second attacker lunged, but Ricky sidestepped, sweeping his legs out from under him. Within moments, both men were on the ground groaning. Ricky grabbed the teenager's backpack and handed it back to him. "You good?" he asked. The boy nodded in shock. "Yeah, thank you." Jason clapped Ricky on the shoulder. "Now that's what I call using your skills the right way." Chapter 12, The Ultimate Challenge. Word spread about Ricky's transformation. A former street criminal turned disciplined fighter wasn't something people saw every day. Jason saw Ricky's potential and arranged a meeting with a well-known MMA coach. "This is your chance to make something of yourself, Ricky," Jason told him. "You up for it?" Ricky nodded, determination burning in his eyes. More than ever. With Jason in his corner, Ricky prepared to take on the biggest fight of his life, not just in the ring, but against his past. And this time, he was ready. Chapter 13, The Final Showdown. Months of training had led Ricky to this moment. Under Jason Statham's guidance, he had been molded into a disciplined fighter, mentally and physically. Now, he stood backstage at a packed MMA arena, wrapping his hands as Jason gave him one final piece of advice. "You've done the work," Jason said, looking Ricky in the eye. "Trust yourself. Stay calm. And remember, this is more than just a fight. This is proving to yourself that you're more than your past." Ricky nodded, heart pounding with adrenaline. The announcer called his name, and as he stepped into the cage, he glanced at the roaring crowd. This wasn't about fame or proving anything to them, it was about proving something to himself. His opponent was fierce, an experienced brawler with years in the ring. The bell rang, and the fight began. The first round was brutal. Ricky took a few heavy hits, but he adapted, just as Jason had taught him. He found his rhythm, stayed patient, and in the second round, he started to dominate. A precise jab. A well-timed kick. With a final, powerful right hook, he sent his opponent crashing to the mat. The referee signaled the fight was over. Ricky had won. Chapter 14, A New Legacy. As the referee raised Ricky's hand, he scanned the crowd and locked eyes with Jason, who nodded approvingly. Ricky had done more than just win a fight, he had rewritten his own story. After the match, Jason pulled Ricky aside. "You've got a future in this, mate. What's next for you?" Ricky exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. "I want to help others. Kids who grew up like me. People who think they don't have a second chance." Jason smiled. "Then let's make it happen." With Jason's mentorship, Ricky started his own youth training program, using his journey as inspiration for others to rise above their circumstances. He was no longer defined by his mistakes, he was defined by the change he made in the world. Epilogue: The man who gave back. Years later, Ricky stood in his own gym, watching a group of young fighters train. One boy, no older than Ricky was when he lost his way, hesitated before stepping into the ring. Ricky approached him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You're stronger than you think. Trust yourself." The boy looked up at him, nervous but determined, and nodded. Ricky smiled. Jason had given him a chance. Now, he was paying it forward. As he watched the boy throw his first punch, Ricky knew his fight had never really been about winning in the ring. It had been about winning at life.